Gauteng teachers suspended for allegedly sexually abusing pupils have cost the Education Department over 10 million rand over the past 5 years. Questions being asked as to why these cases take so long to conclude. Let's speak now to Gauteng Education spokesperson Steve Mabona, who joins us virtually from Pretoria. Steve, thank you for your time this evening, as always. Before we speak about the focus on the suspended teachers costing the department that much money, I want to ask you just about our lead story tonight, about that awful incident at a school in Vlakfontein, where we saw a grade 11, a 20-year-old grade 11 learner stabbed to death during a fight between a group of teenage boys there just yesterday. We saw that you were on the scene interacting with pupils, with the community that quite acceptably are up in arms about not just this incident, but what they believe is a growing issue with the school. Can you bring us up to speed with what the Department of Education has been able to glean in terms of information about this kind of gangsterism and violence at that school, and what your plans are going forward?
Thank you very much, Marcel. We actually had a meeting with the stakeholders, and there was a commitment there that we will be working together. You will understand that earlier in the day, the community members and some of the stakeholders felt that probably we need to do more, the government, making sure that there's safety in the area. They were making complaints about the lack of policing. But when we were meeting with them, the station commissioner was there. She made undertakings on how she will make sure that the schools are protected, but also re-emphasizing on the work that they do. And the area has no network. I was there. We were struggling. And, the police were actually also saying that that is a hindrance to some of the work when they are supposed to be, responding to queries. Sometimes they struggle. But in general, there was an undertaking that we're going to be working together. Tomorrow, the MEC is visiting the area. We are going to the family, that is bereaved. He wants to convey his condolences there. So we'll be visiting the area tomorrow. But when we left, the situation was calm. There was an undertaking from all stakeholders that on Monday, learners must be at school, because we want to continue with the process of supporting them. Our psychosocial unit team will be there. So there's an agreement that the learners will be allowed to be at that school. And we are hopeful that the grade 12s will be allowed to ride at their school, because today we had to move them from their school to the neighboring school. And sometimes it's not really comfortable. You are used to this environment, and now you are taken to a new environment. So we are hopeful that they will be allowed to ride on Monday.
Steve, just one final question on that issue. One doesn't want to read between the lines too much with the story that's just unfolding, as is the case in this. But I know that every year when the education minister, the national education minister, reveals the matric results, she does spend some time talking about the issues. And one of them she brings up year in and year out is the issue around older pupils at school. So these are pupils who are over the age of 18 who are still in the school system, and that's something that the Education Department is very desperately trying to work on. Do you believe that kind of element of basically grown men in a situation like this has an impact on issues around violence and this kind of behavior at schools such as this?
Well, we don't need to underestimate the different backgrounds that we find ourselves in as communities. You'll find that in some instances, learners probably started very late in their, ages to go to school. And most especially, there are those that will be coming from rural areas. And you know that in Gauteng, we have many people that come from different provinces. Gauteng hosts all these provinces. So you find that some, they come from rural areas, they, were late in terms of them being admitted in the schooling environment. So you will find a pocket of those that are overaged, but then you need to manage them to exit the education system. You can't say you are older, you can't be in our environment while you were not taken through the process of basic education. So we have a constitutional obligation to make sure that we provide education, and then they will probably be, exiting as per what they will be doing in the curriculum.
Okay, let's now move on to the issue that we actually invited you on the show with regards to figures that were revealed through an interaction with the Democratic Alliance, the Gauteng Shadow MEC for Education, revealing that over 10 million rand on teachers has been spent on teachers placed on precautionary suspension over sexual misconduct. And this has been reported on, obviously, because it was made public by the Democratic Alliance. And some of the other figures also quite shocking. Of the 173 allegations of sexual misconduct against teachers, 29 teachers were placed on precautionary suspension, 6 teachers currently serving on precautionary suspension. And then there's also a figure of teachers who, 86 teachers who were still employed despite sexual misconduct allegations, and they were found not guilty, and others had other sanctions placed on them. Before I get your reaction on that, can you confirm that those numbers are indeed correct? Because I think you and I would agree that R1 spent in this space for the allegations, serious allegations being made like that, is too much, let alone 10 million rand. What are the figures with regards to these kinds of issues that your department is dealing with?
No, thanks. We can confirm that those are our figures, because we're responding to a question that was coming from Honorable Ramulevi from the DA. But the 10 million figure, it is an overall figure of those that would have been suspended, sitting at home, being paid. When they asked the question, they were not specific to say, give us out of those who are accused of sexual misconduct, those that were suspended. So it's an overall figure of all those teachers that would have been suspended, sitting at home. And you can only be suspended and sit at home if you have a serious case for you to answer on.
Okay, so just for clarity, Steve, is that teachers who were suspended for allegations of sexual misconduct? Or just all teachers suspended for various reasons?
Yes, and it's a figure for the past 5 years.
Okay.
So now, looking at the 173 that you've put on the table, yes, we can confirm it's 173 of those that would have been accused or there were complaints about sexual misconduct. But then out of that number, 87 were dismissed. Meaning that they were found guilty and dismissed. Now you have a remainder of 86. Those that would have not been found guilty, we need to really put an emphasis on that. There are those that their cases were probably not substantiated, they were not found guilty. And you have those that would have been, a sanction being meted out, whereby they will say probably 3 months without pay, or probably they will give them a warning, depending on the merit of a case. Because there are those that would have probably uttered comments which are ridiculous or unacceptable. Then they will be probably given warning and all those things. There's not that they would have violated physically the learners. So when you look at all those figures, when we were asked, they did not focus on saying, out of the 86, what is really happening? But now we're in a position to explain. So we don't have currently an educator that will then be standing in front of a learners teaching meanwhile they have sexual misconduct cases. If you have such, we will then immediately precautionary transfer them to a district office. They will wait there while their cases are being heard. If their cases are finalized, it will depend on the outcome, on what is it that we're going to be doing. Surely, if you are not found guilty of anything, we cannot chastise you. You must go back and teach. You might have been called upon to account for complaints that were put on the table. But if there's nothing that was found, you then need to go back to work. So that's our argument, which we found it very odd that the DA will then want to be alarmist and put things as if we are not caring. Because in their statement, they were saying we are not caring, we are not providing support to learners. And we are saying in all the incidences that are happening in our space, our psychosocial support team, those are the first people to go to our schools and support. So we don't have a reason not to support. And in making sure that they open the cases, those that wanted to open cases at the police station, they would have been guided, they would have been supported to open those cases.
The question, however, being asked, as much as now you've confirmed that that 10 million rand is not the amount that's been spent on teachers suspended specifically when they've had sexual misconduct charges against them. Those are teachers that have been suspended in general for various charges. So you've confirmed that for us. The question, however, is being asked about how long it takes for these cases to be processed. Can you let us in on what that process entails and why it does take so long in many of these cases?
No, these cases, remember, employees are protected. There are labor laws in this country. If you have allegations, they must be tested. So you will then take them through disciplinary process. They must have representation there. You need to give them an opportunity to give their side of their story. As the department, you must then bring your witnesses, prove the case, and then that sometimes you have postponements. It depends on the merit of a case. You find that a case drags because of different circumstances. I mean, you can see what court cases do in terms of them dragging. The case that you were referring to before, on the news there, the thing happened in 2014, but now we are still, seeing it happening at court. So cases differ as per their merits. So you will not say a case that is lodged now, you will finish it in a certain period, but you estimate that probably in 2-3 months, you should be done with the case, because you then need to you start by investigating before you go to the disciplinary process. Because if you rush to go to a disciplinary process, you might then lose that case because of technicality.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much, Gauteng Education spokesperson Steve Mabona, joining us virtually there.